Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Yeah, you know what it is. Hard worker, scrappy, unfiltered, and sometimes unhinged football content. Hard to explain, but you know it when you see it. Doing it daily our way. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Redraft and Dynasty Fantasy Football, we got you covered. You know their defense is ranked like 31st in the NFL. NFL draft prospects and rookies. Now you know you in the right place for that.
Absolutely.
All right, then stop saying it. Then we're done. And prop bets with my man JRich. Count that money, man. Now wipe the crust out of your eyes. Get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake your ass up with Ray G. You honestly are making absolutely no sense and you sound silly as hell. GMGP. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. It is Monday, July the 10th, 2023, and y'all decided to wake y'all asses up with Ray G. And for that, I appreciate y'all being in the building. We're already close to 100 in the building. I see my man Hunter Joe Green in the building. Zach, what's happening with you? Cold World Patrick Price, Ricardo in the building. What's going on? Robert, how you doing? GMGP to you, my guy. Chris in the building. Telecat 92 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. What's going down with you, baby? How y'all doing this morning? It's gonna be a good show. Excited. Happy Monday. This is the Wake Up with Ray G show. If you're new to the channel, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, like the content. We have a good time over here at Destination Davy. We've got a dope crew. And Jay, I don't know if you're aware, man. I don't know if you're aware, but we are a mere, I believe it's 3 weeks away from the NFL Hall of Fame game, dude. 3 weeks away.
Oh.
From the Hall of Fame. Yeah. I know. Nice. Training camp starts next week. It's going to be a good one. Let me see who else we got in the building. What's going on? My girl Joe in the building. 7 Goat Rings. What's up, Thomas? How you doing? All right, Jay, turn my music off, man. It's time to get into the damn show. Turn my music off. Good morning, everybody. Glad y'all are in the building. We got a jam-packed show filled for y'all today. Y'all know what it is, though. Shout out to Underdog Fantasy, the people that pay the bills. Go over to Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code WAKEUP for an instant deposit match up to $100. Play all the new tournament games, season-long tournaments, weekly winners. You got Best Ball Mania 4. They opened another tournament, Jay, over on Underdog, the Pomeranian, and that thing filled in like an hour. Yeah, filled in like an hour. Insane volume over there at Underdog. But Jay, I got to intro you. I keep talking to you, man. How are you doing this Monday, my friend? Did you do anything fun over the weekend, Jay?
I had a little bit of fun, actually. We had a little party at the house, so got a little bit fucked up, which was good. But yeah, I'm happy to be back. People thought we were canceled, Ray. They thought you were quitting on me. Yeah, I don't know what was going on with the YouTube comments. People thought that you were pulling a Shannon Sharp, leaving me. We're going to be canceled till August, like Skip Bayless. Yeah, I don't know what that was all about. But, you know, we launched 2 new pods this week. Some people liked my pod, which was good. And, of course, the Ray G pod, the Ray G show. Everyone loved Ray's pod. Oh, it was so motivational. I'm going to start going to the gym.
Hell yeah.
But it was a great job by you, and why I pushed you to do the solo pod, because people love Ray G, who does solo pod, so make sure you check that out on Saturdays. Mine will be dropping tomorrow, so very excited to do that. And both of us, Ray, if you are not watching the show on YouTube, we are wearing baseball jerseys. Because it is the Home Run Derby today, you are wearing the suspended one, Mr. Fernando Tatis Jr., not participating in the Home Run Derby or the All-Star Game. And I'm wearing Mr. Mookie Betts, my favorite player in the MLB and currently on fire. But this is a football show after all, so we will have to talk some football at some point. But very excited for training camp, Ray.
Hey,
very excited for training camp.
We're going to talk everything but football for the first 5 minutes, Jay. Yes, we both have baseball jerseys on. You know, I'm all in. I'm watching every night. I'm in. Jay,
Let's go.
I'm hooked. I'm in. My Astros.
And the draft was last night.
Draft was last night. My Astros, big comeback win versus the I'm all in. I'm all in. My son has converted me. I'm into baseball, man. I'm all in. But Jay, I think the biggest sports piece of news coming out of the weekend, Jordan Richards. Where's my man Mike? Where's Mike Anderson at in the chat? Mike Anderson hadn't been here in a long. Where's Mike? I'm looking in the comments now for Mike Anderson because I've got exactly what he wants today, because I know when he wakes up, he cannot wait for us to talk about the NBA, Jay. Yes, we will get to our podcast in a minute, but I think the biggest piece of sports news, Jay, is they say this kid is the best prospect ever of all time, any sport, any era. San Antonio Spurs, Victor Wembanyama made his debut, Jay. And I just got to ask you, What are your thoughts? Because game one was a little shaky, and for those of y'all who don't know, y'all know who damn Wemby is, right? 7'11", skilled like a guard, best prospect of all time, Jay. What are your thoughts on his opening weekend performance in San Antonio? Game one was a little rough, and then last night he dropped 27, 12, and 4 blocks or something like that. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the blocks are definitely as advertised, right? Which I think the big thing for him will be how does he perform on the defensive end? Now, again, I think we still need to see him against NBA bigs, not these skinny prospects that you see in the summer league. But yeah, I mean, he's been pretty good. Obviously, he scored a bunch of points. I don't know, Ray, I think I'm a huge hater when it comes to this kind of stuff because and I'm sure you feel the same way a little bit. Man. Hold on, though. It's like, shouldn't someone who is 7'5" dominate it in even the NBA? Like, the dude is huge, and it's like, okay, this guy went out and grabbed 12 rebounds in a game. It's like, well, if I was 7'5", I would hope I could grab 12 rebounds in a game. He's massive, and I think the biggest thing with him, with Chet Holmgren, with all these young guys coming to the NBA is like, they look good.
Chet's look good in summer league.
Slim, bro. Like, their legs are like this.
They're tiny.
Their legs are like this, and they're 4 feet long, 5 feet. Like, I don't know how these guys are going to hold up, but I mean, I think Wemby's going to be good. The only thing that I think he gets too much credit for is probably his footwork because he gets compared to KD so much. I think KD's footwork coming out was a little bit better than Wemby's, but we'll see. It's Summer League, right? People are going to overreact to Summer League. I could care less about Summer League. And Ray, you didn't even, I don't think you even knew this or if you knew it or not, but Pop got a 5-year extension as well. So he's going to be coaching Wemby for the next like 6 years.
Yes. I saw, dude, I pay attention to all fucking, I watch everything, Jay. I watch it all. Yeah, I think
he's old though, man. I wasn't sure he was going to be there. Like,
they said
he was almost going to retire.
Yeah, they said he was going to leave, but they got the number one pick.
Then they got Wemby.
Yeah, they got Wemby. Yeah, I think people overreacted a little bit bad. I mean, he's going to be all right. He's going to be all right. And the comments, they love
Britney
it.
Spears fans and stuff.
Let's not
that
pull up.
So
I don't
funny.
want to hear. Oops, we did
So
it.
funny.
Oops, I did it again. Don't bring up Britney in this, man. That's childhood. Do not talk about Miss Spears. All right. But the chat loved it, man. They want to hear Wemby. So this might be like NBA. We might just start talking NBA. We probably won't, but
why not? Scoot looked good too.
Okay, Scoot did look good, and Scoot he did look good. And Dame's getting traded to the Heat, which that'll be interesting. If they only have to give up like Hero, all right. Let me give you the barometer for the show. So for the past like 3 weeks, Jay, we've started every show off asking you a question. It's really good to engage with the audience, and I want to hear this one. And we had this thing teed up because the 33rd team had a dope question that they posed the other day about wide receiver draft classes, and I was asking you which draft class was better. We were going to start the show with that, but I pivoted last minute. I was like, saw something on Instagram that I think is a little better, Jay. So let me set the scene for you, right? So I'm just going to ask you, Jay, in their prime, which one of these players would you rather have in their prime? So everybody out there listening, watching, got a 3-box graphic up, and it says, who would you take in their prime? Marshawn Lynch, Chris Johnson, or LaShawn McCoy? Jay, this will determine the outcome of the show. Your answer to this question is going to let everybody know what type of day we're about to have. So in their prime, you taking CJ2K, you taking Beast Mode, or you taking Shady? Which one are you taking in their prime of these 3 running backs?
Well, because the question is just that, who are you taking in their prime? I think the answer has to be Chris Johnson. I think we all know the longevity that Shady had in the league, but you talk about prime, 2K yards. You talked to me 500 receiving yards on top of that. And you look at the game we see now, space and pace is what drives the NFL. And if you put Chris Johnson in the NFL today, he may be even better than he was when he was playing 10 years ago. Definitely understand why people may say Shady. Marshawn Lynch, definitely not a conversation for me. But CJ2K in his prime, at his best, probably slightly better than Shady McCoy.
And that's the question, in their prime. And I think, man, as much as this one was, if you just take in their prime, don't take the body of work, because LaShawn McCoy has the most impressive resume over the course of his career than the other 2 guys. This one is tough, and it pains me, man, but prime Shady was a different animal, man. As a Cowboys fan, I don't think people realize how good LaShawn McCoy was for how long he played well for. In his best season, I mean, Chris Johnson went for 2,000 as a second-year running back, which is that's bananas, right? 358 carries, 2,006 yards, 14 touchdowns in 2009 to go along with 50 receptions, 503 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Chris Johnson. Shady in his best season, man, he had 1,600 yards, but he did that on almost 40 less carries. And he also, in that same season, had almost 600 receiving yards. He had 592 on 539 on 52 receptions in 2013. So I think for me, this is a tough one because Lynch was a beast in his prime. CJ2K was a beast. But I think for my money, if I had to pick one of those 3 running backs in their prime, I'd take Shady McCoy in their prime. But I think you can't go wrong with either of those guys. Chris Johnson, I mean, that second season was just... Yeah,
so many carries. Could you imagine giving Devon A-Chain that many carries?
Yeah, man.
Like, just imagine that. It's crazy.
203 pounds? That's what he weighed? 200?
If he weighed that, right? Like, I mean, maybe he did.
358 carries.
You'd be lucky to see a running back who's 205 carry the ball 250 times in a season. Like, you'd be lucky to see that now. Chris Johnson to do that and holding up for a whole year is absolutely insane. Absolutely
everybody.
Insane.
Okay, so we got Joe said beast mode. Dan said Shady. I got Patrick on CJ. Brock Shady. A lot of CJs. Rhonda gives Marshawn Lynch the nod. This would be a fun one. We got to put this on YouTube and ask the people. So we are divided this morning. There's no commonality here. We got the CJ camp, we got the Shady camp, and we got the beast mode camp. Those are dope camps to be in, Jay. But we've got to get to Underdog. Risers and fallers, JRich, you know what it is. It is your time to take the show away. So let's get into Underdogs, Risers, and Fallers right now.
From the biggest and brightest stars to the last round pick, we have you covered for everything on Underdog Fantasy. Let's get into it and let's get that money, baby.
All right, go. So I don't need to be on here. Go.
All right, so let's start off with the top risers and fallers on Underdog this week. And the biggest guy that I do want to focus on, and Ray, you will talk about him a little bit, is Antonio Gibson. And if you look at these total trends, and I will obviously go through all the players, there is some things that I'm noticing, and it's almost like the people on Underdog are finally catching up to some of the things that people have been talking about for a long time. Nico Collins could be Houston's wide receiver 1. He's the top riser in the top 150. Like I mentioned, Antonio Gibson rising because Eric Bieniemy, this Washington offense. We will talk about how Mike Clay feels about Sam Howell in a little bit. David Johnson taking over the Jamaal Williams role. Tyler Higbee, now that Matt Stafford is officially back and going to play all season, he's probably of value on Underdog. And then you talk about some of the fallers. Still Michael Gallup, which I don't know why that keeps happening, Ray. Gallup, I'm kind of thinking could be a value down the line, but we'll see. Juju keeps falling. Kincaid, overvalued as hell. We've talked about this forever. And then, of course, Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins still looking for jobs, still not accepting contracts, still thinking they're worth more than they're getting. And these are kind of the big things that are changing on Underdog. But I do think it's interesting that you see the Deontay Johnson love come about now, because there was a couple hype pieces this week about Deontay. And again, I tell people this all the time. I understand if you don't like the player, but when you're telling me a guy is going to go out and probably see 140 to 150 targets in a season and has seen that for the past few seasons, you probably want that player on your fantasy team. Yes, his ceiling may not be where you like it to be, but that's just the type of volume and floor that you want to have on your team overall. Montgomery could have a huge touchdown ceiling. We'll see what happens with him. Higbee, again, the target share could be there. It's just Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, and if Stafford is playing the whole year, which seems like he's going to be, definitely worth having. And of course, Nico Collins could be very interesting with CJ Stroud at the helm. And I'm very curious how Dalton Kincaid ultimately falls, because Josh Allen's been doing his little podcast tour. He was saying a ton of funny stuff on Bussin' with the Boys this past weekend, so that was hilarious. But then, of course, there's the constant story of Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins and where those guys ultimately fall out. So, Ray, do you have any comments on these guys? Do you have any thoughts on Dallas? Because I think Dallas is really interesting. We know it's CD, but beyond CD, we have Brandon Cooks and we have Gallup. We don't really know who the wide receiver 2 is in Dallas. Do you have any thoughts as to what's going to happen in Dallas this season?
Come on, man. It's Brandon Cooks. It's Brandon Cooks, man. Okay. Brandon Cooks is the wide receiver 2. Michael Gallup will play his role. He's going to be that field stretcher, right? Downfield, contested catch guy. But the wide receiver 2 in Dallas, no doubt, is Brandon Cooks. Michael Gallup found a little bit. Yeah, we're going to talk a little Antonio Gibson. We're going to talk a little David Montgomery. And it's good to see Deontay Johnson getting some love, right? It seemed like it was all George Pickens hype for the longest, and people just continue to forget that Deontay Johnson is going to be the one that leads the Steelers in targets more than likely, right? So that's going to be that's going to be an interesting one right there. Newt going down a little bit, Dalvin, just uncertainty, like you said, of where those guys are going to end up playing this year. And I saw a report, man, as Juju's parading around with my boy Lawrence Jackson over there at My Fantasy Life. Juju's out there making damn fantasy content and his ass ain't practiced yet. So he's giving us his top 5 sleeper receivers and ain't on the damn field yet. So we'll see where Nuke ends up. We'll talk about those guys here in a second. But yeah, it's it's getting to that point now that we're only a couple of weeks away from training camp, literally training camp start for some teams, Jay, next week, and we're only a few weeks away from the Hall of Fame game. So these underdog contests should really start heating up. And remember, if you do use the promo code WakeUp, you do get access to our Discord for the year for free. So it's just interesting to track these players, and you start to see some of this stuff reflected in startup drafts as well as auctions, man. We're in a big auction right now.
For sure.
So it's just really good to pay attention to the players that are rising, players that are falling, the players that are hot, the players that are dropping over on Underdog. It's like the best piece of ADP news or information that we can use over the summer. So make sure you tap into that, Jay. But we've got a lot of stuff going on in the old NFL, a lot of stuff happening in the league. So let's get to what's happening, because there's some interesting news pieces that we've got to discuss before we get into the main block, baby. What's happening?
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what he's doing.
What the hell is going on?
What's up? What's happening?
All right, Jay, let's start off with the first piece. And I just got to say, because your boy, it's not looking too good for your boy, all right? So reports are quarterback Malik Willis has outperformed rookie Will Levis this offseason, but Malik Willis could still get cut. The Titans, they're not committed to young Willis, Jay, and clearly they would rather cut him over the second-round pick that they spent on Will Levis, even though Malik Willis has outperformed Levis. So, Jay, do you think there's any hope for old Malik Willis, and what are your thoughts on Will Levis, seeing as though he's been outperformed early by Malik Willis? What are you doing with this Titans situation at quarterback?
I mean, it's probably one of the most disrespectful reports I've ever seen in the NFL. It's pretty much up there with I see him in practice every day. Because people who don't know the new rules, like the Titans can literally keep a third quarterback and not use a roster spot, and still Malik Willis might not make the roster. Like, think about how much he'd have to be hated in the building to not make the team when it doesn't even cost them a roster spot to keep him there. Like, that is the ultimate indictment. And to be fair, we saw Malik Willis play last season. And if I was just making a bet, he's probably not it. And that's just probably how it's going to be. What does it mean for Levis? Probably nothing. He was drafted this season. He has the shiny new toy. He has the upside. But talk about fuel for the Will Levis haters out there. The ultimate fuel is he is being outperformed by Malik Willis in camp, in practices, in the room. Not good for Levis, but we'll see what happens with him and ultimately if he can play.
I'm kind of with Joe, man. I wouldn't mind a team taking a chance on him. I mean, we all knew he was a developmental guy, right? We even when a lot of people thought he would go early in the draft, me included, we were like, he's probably not ready early, right? He played at Liberty, more raw toolsy prospect. I mean, you knew he wasn't going to be that good, and Tennessee wasn't. There was not a lot surrounding him last year, or any quarterback, Ryan Tannehill for that matter. So I don't know, Jay. The likelihood is he's probably not good. He was a third-round pick, but...
And bench for Josh Dobbs late in the season.
It would be nice to see.
There's a lot of bad things in his...
It did seem like the Titans really wanted him, or Vrabel really was feeling that. Didn't seem like Vrabel was feeling that 2022 class in general, from top to bottom, right? It didn't really feel like he was feeling any of those guys. But, Jay, there's more news from the Titans camp. What else we got?
So we have the Titans have made an offer to DeAndre Hopkins, which is apparently more aggressive than the Patriots offer. Now, it is important to note, Ray, that the New England Patriots are still minus 120 to land DeAndre Hopkins on DraftKings Sportsbook. Buffalo is actually second, and then the Titans are third. But apparently the Titans have made the most aggressive offer, but people need to obviously remember that Bill O'Brien is the OC in New England, so there's that familiarity when DeAndre Hopkins got 150 targets every single year with Bill O'Brien as his head coach. So we'll see what happens with him, but it seems like it's going to be the Patriots or bust. It doesn't seem like he really wants to go to Tennessee. He said, I'll retire from football when I'm not a 1K yard receiver. With that said, I was on pace for 1,400 yards last year, one significant injury in 11 years. I might play till I'm 37 with the way I feel. It seems like he's still wait and see mode, but it doesn't seem like Tennessee's going to be the fit, which is great for us because I don't think anybody wants to see him in Tennessee, whether you have Treylon Burks or you just don't want to deal with that Titans offense. For everything, the Patriots aren't. Lots of targets to go around there. So if Nuke Hopkins does end up there, probably a pretty good spot. How would you feel about him if he did end up in New England?
Man, I'll be on. Can I be honest with you, Jay? Can I be honest, man? That's a situation that I don't like at all. Okay, I don't think that. I think Bill Belichick, offensively, for what he did during the Patriots dynasty, I'm not going to take anything away from him as the coach, but I think a lot of that offense was Tom Brady. They just over the years, they've done very little to surround whatever quarterback was back there, and it was Tom Brady for 20 years or 18 years. They just didn't do a lot year over year to surround even the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. And they have not done much to surround Mac Jones with weapons or talent in New England either. But with that being said, it's almost like to a lesser degree, because the structure and the foundation is much better than Trevor Lawrence had under Urban Meyer, but it almost feels like it can't get any worse for Mac Jones. When you have like a defensive coordinator that has been installed as your... Like, when you just say that, man, it is so egregious for something like that to happen. In junior high, fine. Your defensive coach is your head coach, fine. Maybe even in high school, maybe, Jay. You played at some small podunk high school. Your head coach was probably your PE teacher, the lunch man, and the defensive coordinator. So I get it. But in the NFL, how do you even sign off on some shit like that happening? So how do I feel about New England? Not great. But how do I feel about
Bill O'Brien?
But how do I feel about Mac Jones making significant strides from where he was last year? And how do I feel about Bill O'Brien? Absolutely. I think it would be fine. I think he would no doubt be the best receiver that they have, and it wouldn't be close. He would lead that team in targets. He would lead that team in receiving yards. So I kind of like the value that you're maybe getting on a player like a Mac Jones right now, or a DeAndre Hopkins if New England is where he lands. I just do not think it can get any worse than what Mac Jones was surrounded with last year. And I was very close to putting Mac Jones as one of my selections for the main show. So do I like the New England Patriots? Not really, to be honest with you. But do I think it can get any worse than it was last year? No, I think there's only room for improvement, opportunity, and growth for the New England Patriots, Mac Jones, and if DeAndre Hopkins inevitably lands there. So next up on the docket is a real interesting one, Jay, because it is the AFC East or bust, apparently. And this one seems to be quite polarizing because some people just can't wrap their minds around this team actually being interested in a running back. But Dalvin Cook saga, Jay. So now it is confirmed, all types of report. It's out there. Dolphins got a contract out there for Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook could be a Dolphin today, apparently, if he wanted to be, right? So right now, according to Jeff Darlington, Dalvin Cook is not willing to accept the current offer from the Miami Dolphins. And there's a lot of reports and rumors about the Jets wanting another running back, the Jets wanting Dalvin Cook declining a visit. But again, the Jets are interested. Cook's going to be in the AFC East. Is this just a matter of Dalvin Cook and his representatives figuring out a deal with Miami, or do you think there's a shot that he lands in New York, Jay?
I think there is a pretty good shot he lands in New York. I mean, they're the third odds-on favorite to land Dalvin Cook. We obviously talked about Miami. I wonder if maybe the role that he was promised wasn't what he was expecting. Obviously, every running back is looking for money and they're not going to get it. So we'll see what happens with that. He'll probably end up settling for a contract somewhere. But as well, Ray, not in the reports, not talked about, the odds makers still have New England in the mix, actually even with Miami. So that part is kind of interesting. But like you mentioned, AFC East or bust. Where he ends up, I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like it's going to be Buffalo anymore, which, again, initially there was reports about that. But yeah, whether it's Miami, whether it's the Jets, I think the problem is that everyone hates it for fantasy, but for real life NFL, you put Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook in a backfield, and that's phenomenal for Aaron Rodgers. And that's even better than he had last season in A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, right? With Nathaniel Hackett coming from that same LaFleur system that was run with Arthur Smith that he kind of learned, and they use these two backs a lot. If you have two backs that aren't Michael Carter and Izzy Abanikanda, and you get Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall, especially coming off the ACL injury, that would be phenomenal for the Jets. We don't like it for fantasy, but that's where fantasy and real-life NFL definitely come to an intersection, because you have that Shanahan-type system that Saleh's familiar with, and then, of course, the LaFleur, Arthur Smith, Titan system that they ran in Green Bay kind of coming together, and both like to use multiple backs and run the ball a lot. So I think Cook would be a great fit no matter where he goes. I would rather see him in Miami, but if he ended up on the Jets, I wouldn't be surprised either.
All right, Jay, what else we got?
So, Ray, you're going to love this one because it feels like we don't talk about this enough, but an NFC executive said that Panthers quarterback Bryce Young is a mental savant, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. I was told his mental aptitude has been as advertised. That's what he is known for during the draft process, as a mental savant. I was told with the Panthers offense, it's a hard install. It's got shades of the Los Angeles Rams system from new offensive coordinator Thomas Brown. No new quarterback bats 1,000 in learning in the first month, but I was told he's pretty darn close to 100%. So the Panthers really believe that as long as he has a command for the offense, they're in good shape. They don't need him to be a hero because this is a really good emerging roster. Now, that was the quote. The end part, I don't really agree with. But overall, Ray, as you pointed out over so many times over the course of the draft process and through the offseason, that Bryce Young mentally is always going to be there. It's just how does it ultimately come together on the field? And you want to talk about preparation, Ray, and I do have a question for you that I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Would you ever bet on any other quarterback in the NFL, or rookie quarterback, to lead rookie quarterbacks in passing? Bryce Young is the favorite at -120. CJ Stroud is +105. Is there any other quarterback that you would consider to bet to lead the NFL in passing as a rookie this season?
No.
Okay.
No. It's Bryce Young or bust. I mean, listen, man, it doesn't. If you've watched any amount of college football over the last 2 years, I don't think anybody, again, outside of his size, I don't think there's any knock on Bryce Young. Outside of his size. Yep. I mean, he is. They were showing a replay yesterday of the Georgia-Alabama game from the SEC title game last year. Not this past season, but in his Heisman season. He's very good, man. I think he's going to be, I'm telling you, Jay, I get it. I think he's going to be very good. I think he's going to be a very good fantasy quarterback, and I think he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. Bryce Young, real deal. Every single thing that you read, see, and hear about him. Did you see? I think this was kind of. I thought it was a little funny. I think people kind of overreact when they see this stuff. But did you see Michael Rubin's all-white party, all the stars that went out? So there was a picture.
Stars, right?
Yeah, it was the billionaires, the A-listers, right? CJ Stroud was having a good time. He's in there, all white, bottleless Ciroc, popping bottles. CJ Stroud having a good time. They showed from the same day, Bryce Young was in the gym grinding. Bryce Young,
really?
Bryce didn't go to that all-white party, baby. Bryce was he was actually training with, who was he throwing balls to? He was training with it was Adam Thielen and somebody else. But Bryce Young, while CJ Stroud's hanging out with Kim Kardashian and Kevin Hart and Jay-Z, my man Bryce Young is grinding, man. So, I mean, is this a really good emerging roster? I don't know. Defensively, it's not bad. Defensively, it's not bad, but look at Ike in the chat. Ike, here we go.
Yeah.
Ike, I'm just saying, baby, we're grinding. Ike goes to the all-white parties. Ike was at he is a prince. Mm-hmm. He was at the all-white party with Ruben and CJ Stroud not working in the lab. But, I think Bryce is going to be good. I think Stroud's got a good shot, too. His receiving weapons are a little shakier than Bryce's, and that's saying something because neither of those rooms are particularly good. But I think Stroud is going to be fine. But I'm just telling you, he was at that all-white party, Jay. He wasn't grinding like my boy Bryce Young. So
hanging out with Grant Williams and Tobias Harris.
Tobias Harris. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, Jay, get us with the last piece of news, and let's get into the show.
So, Ray, it was reported that the Rams tried desperately to trade starting quarterback Matthew Stafford. As you actually talked about, I won't even take credit for this at all. You said the Rams are all in on Caleb. From January, from February, March, you said it, all in on Caleb. And we never heard any reports of this, but Michael Lombardi on the Pat McAfee show did kind of let this come out. Before his option bonus was kicking in, the Rams attempted to trade him with a lot of effort to move Stafford. And he said, and I quote, "Any team could have had him." That could be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That could have been the Las Vegas Raiders. So, Ray, I mean, I don't know if it's a slight on Stafford because they did give him a massive contract when they definitely should not have done that. But you look at what they tried to do. Cooper Kupp coming back, obviously, he's going to be really good this season. But trying to trade Stafford is definitely something that's a little bit surprising, unless, of course, you are Mr. Ragey and you were all in on them tanking for Caleb. And it says a lot about what they could be this year as well. Are they going to shut down their guys early? Are they going to tank if things aren't going well? Because I like Stafford for what he could be if the volume is there and if they're contending. But once they're out of it, they may be all in on Caleb early by midseason. So we'll see what happens with them. But do you feel any type of way about potentially drafting a Stafford in redraft or a Cooper Kupp, knowing that they did try and potentially tank early this offseason?
Yes, Jay. And I'm telling you, where's my girl Jo at? She said if we put like a little note thing in the chat, she's going to remember it. I need y'all to... Stetson Bennett, Jay, he's going to play games this year. He's going to play games. He's going to play multiple games. If I had to set the over-under for Stetson Bennett, I'd say 2.5, 3.5. What do you think? 2.5, 3.5.
Would you bet him at 80-1 to lead all rookies in passing yards?
Absolutely not. I'm not going that. I'm not doing that. But I think he's going to play. Listen,
I think 4 games. Yeah, probably about a month.
Listen, here's the reality is, in order for the Rams to get Caleb, they have to be the worst team. They have to be the worst team in the league. I know there are a lot of reports out there right now where some unnamed scouts are saying that Marv could be 101. They're saying Marv could be the first pick in the draft next year. Yeah, Shannon Sharp, Mountain Dew video. Yeah. It's going to be Caleb Williams. It's going to be the quarterback. And right now, the leader in that clubhouse is the Arizona Cardinals ×2 because they've got Houston's #1 pick as well. From a business standpoint, Caleb Williams, the USC kid, staying in LA, going to the Rams that got this brand new $1 billion stadium would be phenomenal. I mean, it would
glove fit.
It would I really wonder, like from a ROI perspective, would it be worth the Rams saying F this season? Like, and I know
Absolutely.
that's not, I know that would never happen, but would it be worth it for the Los Angeles Rams organization, for the city of LA? I don't know. For the Rams to be like, we're losing every game and we're going to draft Caleb Williams and we're going to start fresh with him. Would it be worth it? I think it probably would. I think the Rams would like that to happen organically, but the fact that they've already made the effort, or reports that they've made a significant effort to trade Stafford, any team could have had him. Listen, man, it like when I see stuff like this, I'm just like, man, I don't know, Jay. I don't feel comfortable drafting him in redraft at all. Like, I just don't. I just have no interest in Matthew Stafford at all. I have interest in Cooper Kupp, but not Matthew Stafford. The defense has completely been gutted. All they have left on defense is it's rookies and Aaron Donald. Offensive line is still a train wreck. Yep. I don't know, man. There aren't many players on this Rams team that I have a lot of interest in outside of Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, a little bit of Cam Akers for as long as that lasts for. But I don't know, Jay. This just doesn't feel good to me. So
ticking time bomb. When we need it most, he may be on the sidelines, right? And that's the biggest problem. Cooper Kupp, when we needed it most last season, that was because of injury, but when we needed the most, they were all on the sidelines, right? Except for Cam Akers, who was
and you know who the Rams, right? You know who the Rams get in Week 17? It's the Rams and the Giants, I believe. So, not a good it should be if everybody's there, it should be a lot of scoring, but I have no freaking idea, Jay. But all right, man. So the concept for today's show, you saw it on the thumbnail. Who's got next? This year's version of last year's stars. I got this idea from, and I see all the super chats coming in. We'll get to those at the end of the show. Appreciate you, Stanley. I saw Mike Clay. There's an article on ESPN from Mike Clay. Really cool article where he just went through like this year's version of last year's stars. So we're not going to go through all of them because some of them was like, who's going to be this year's Breece Hall? And I'm like, Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs, no doubt, pretty easy. But there were some interesting ones there. And Jay, we're going to go through it. We've got our players. We've got some stuff to accompany it. And we'll just kind of give you the setup. And we want to hear from you in the chat. So comment, engage, let us know. But let's start this thing off, Jay. So the first question that I'm going to ask you and I'm going to ask the audience, who is going to be this season's Jalen Hurts? And by that, I mean, Jalen Hurts was a quarterback who relied heavily on his elite rushing ability to emerge as a fantasy superstar in his third NFL season. Mike Clay has Justin Fields as being this year's version of Jalen Hurts. I kind of took the question a little differently because there aren't that many third-year quarterbacks that had a big
and
rushing.
rush the ball.
Right, there's not a lot of that. So what I think could happen this year, Jay, for me, the answer to this question for me is none other than New York Giants quarterback Daniel Jones, Jay. I think Daniel Jones has a small chance to be, for fantasy, a lesser, maybe like an elite light version of what Jalen Hurts was last year. You look at Daniel Jones, who finished 10th last year, Jay, in points per game. Daniel Jones was phenomenal in year one with Brian Daboll and literally nobody outside of Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones provided significant rushing yards, almost 800 rushing yards last year. And he didn't throw, he only had 15 touchdowns, and he was still QB 10 points per game. So year two in Daboll's system, you bring in Darren Waller. They've got Darius Slayton back, Isaiah Hodgins, Saquon Barkley will be in the building, an ascending offensive line. I think Daniel Jones has a really good chance this season. If you're going to say which player outside of a Justin Fields could sneak in to that top 5 quarterbacks, I think there's a chance. It's not a wide margin, but I do think there's a chance Daniel Jones could finish this season as a top 5 quarterback in New York. Where you at?
Yeah, absolutely, Ray. I'm with you for sure. And it's funny, Joe said, I think Trey Lance does the impossible and starts the whole season. So that made me chuckle a little bit.
Let's go, Joe.
The Daniel Jones film. So I had to take this question a little bit differently because there's only so many rushing quarterbacks that can emerge in the top 10. But I do think that this one is pretty interesting from the standpoint of a player that could be QB1 because his circumstance has finally changed. And I'm going with Justin Herbert, Ray. I was stuck between TLaw and Herbert. But I think when you talk about Kellen Moore and what he's done for Dak Prescott, how many yards Dak Prescott threw for, and now he's playing with Justin Herbert, what we could see from Herbert could be a legitimate runaway QB1. And it's not to say that Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and all these guys aren't going to be in the mix, but Herbert could be breaking passing yard records this season. And I think with an improved offensive line, and obviously Herbert being hurt last season, lends itself to a bit of a discount for the ceiling that Herbert could have with Kellen Moore. And so we'll see what ultimately happens with them. But if they throw the ball as much as I expect them to, Herbert could be in for a massive season. And while, yes, we're looking for a Jalen Hurts type breakout, I'm looking at QB1, number one. And I think that's what Herbert can do in this Kellen Moore offense in 2023.
It's interesting you went with, I thought you were going to go Trevor Lawrence, but listen, Kellen Moore was phenomenal with Dak Prescott. Now, I do think, Jay, the collection of receivers that Justin Herbert will have at his disposal is better than what Dak Prescott. I think the collection, I know Keenan Allen is older. I get that. I know Mike Williams is on and off, but if you're saying you're going to have a starting 3 of Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler as your running back, and then you've got an athletic tight end in Gerald Everett. I guess him and Dalton Schultz are kind of the same thing. If you put Everett in Dallas, he's probably what Dalton Schultz was. I think there is a case for Justin Herbert to be, to be QB1 on the season. Justin Fields was Mike Clay's choice. Daniel Jones for me, and Justin Herbert for you, JRich. For this season's Jalen Hurts, and I just want to say that's hard to get to. What Jalen Hurts did last year is, and
especially where he came from, right? He was like, back in QB1, if that? And there's just not a lot of options to do that this season. But it would be Fields, for sure. But Fields still is like QB7 off the board. So, it's still a high bar for Fields. And, we've been definitely outspoken on how we feel about Fields from a passing progression standpoint. And we'll see how he develops. But, DJ Moore, maybe he could be the answer.
All right. Well, let's talk about this season's Trevor Lawrence. So the setup for this question, who is going to be this season's Trevor Lawrence? A former first-round pick, Lawrence emerged into a QB1 in his second NFL season. So Mike Clay, shout out to Mike, he took the low-hanging fruit, and he took Kenny Pickett as a former first-round pick to finish as a top 10 quarterback. I don't think there's a chance in hell Kenny Pickett finishes as a top 10 quarterback this year. I just don't believe.
Really? You don't?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Not top 10, man. He's got to do a. Go look at what he's got. He's got to be Daniel Jones. He's got to give me 800 rushing yards. He's got to give me, 20 passing touchdowns just to get there. So I don't think there's a chance for Kenny Pickett to get there. I don't hate Kenny Pickett. I don't dislike Kenny Pickett, but QB1 in the second season, I'm not seeing that for Kenny Pickett. And the answer for this question, because I really tried to find a former first-round quarterback in his second season. It's not going to be damn Desmond Ridder, right? He's not going to finish as a QB1. So I have nobody, Jay. I have nobody, but you do have somebody on your list, and I couldn't believe. Did you put? Go ahead and tell the people who you said.
I put this in the notes just to make you laugh because I put Malik Willis, but my answer would 100% be Desmond Ridder. It would be Desmond Ridder. If I could pick Malik a guy, Willis. I didn't. Okay, I picked Malik Willis because he's going to take Tannehill's job. He's going to beat out Will Levis, and he's going to throw the ball to Treylon Burks 1,000 times. But yeah,
so you're going to go Desmond Ridder. You're going to go Desmond Ridder.
Ridder would be the pick, 100%. It's funny. We were going through this list, and we'll go through obviously all these players. Ridder was going to be one of my picks for one of the later ones as well. Because I just think that the opportunity for what Ridder could be this year, and especially people need to understand, like, if you have not looked at the schedule, if you are in the South, AFC or NFC, your schedule is significantly easier than every other team because they play each other. And you look at the Saints schedule, Ray, they have 8 straight dome games. 8 straight dome games. And people don't want to buy into Derek Carr when they play 14 of their 17 games in domes this season. So you look at these types of things, and obviously Atlanta plays a bunch of dome games, or they play games in the South, in Jacksonville, in Tennessee, in Tampa Bay, like all this good weather, these good opportunities. So you can't just fade these guys. If I was picking a quarterback from the class last year, it would absolutely be Ridder because he has rushing upside. And you talk about a red zone with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson. Let's not forget Desmond Ridder could easily run for 5-6 touchdowns this season because he's going to be the forgotten man in that offense. May not be 500, 600 rushing yards on the year, but the touchdowns and on the goal line could definitely be there. I'd be picking Ridder as my dark horse for a guy who could finish as a QB1 just because the schedule is going to be easy and the team I think is going to be a lot better than people expect it to be.
I just don't think they're going to pass enough. I thought about it, man, but man, QB1, I don't think they're going to throw the ball enough. But to your point about the South, I mean, it's awful. It's bad. Those schedules, Bijan should do very well. You name a player from the NFC South, and they should do well this year. And Atlanta was really good as far as an offensive line unit. Their rushing attack probably going to be better. And they got better. Probably going to be pretty good for Mr. Bijan Robinson. So
Matt Bruning losing it in the chat. Losing it.
Matt Bruning, JRich, speak that truth. All right, here we go. Desmond Ridder. All right, let's have some fun now because, Jay, we're getting into this one, and I'm excited to talk about this one. And the name that you have here, the name that you have here is so dirty and disgusting. I thought you were joking, and then you put notes in there.
I'm dead serious.
All right, we'll get to it. So the next question is, who's going to be this season's version of Geno Smith? Geno Smith came out of nowhere to post his first top 10 fantasy campaign, and he is right about that because Geno Smith came out of nowhere, Jay. There wasn't a soul. Everybody, and this is not calling anybody out. I said it. Scott Connors said it. Name the biggest analyst. They said avoid Seattle like Seahawks, the plague. Yeah. They are going to be awful. Russ is gone. Buy all those Broncos. Seattle's god-awful. Sell DK. Sell Lockett. Just shit across the board. Buy all those Broncos. And the reverse happened. The Broncos all stunk, and it was the Seahawks that took flight. So Mike Clay in this article has Sam Howell as his projected out-of-nowhere top 10 fantasy finish in 2023. He's got the Washington Commanders quarterback, Sam Howell. Jay, for me, and this is all predicated on health. If this player is healthy.
Already with the caveats.
If he's healthy, I think he's going to come out of nowhere. Kind of not out of nowhere, kind of everywhere.
Not really out of nowhere at all.
Not really out of nowhere, but a lot of people think he's ass. So it's going to be kind of like, oh, well, maybe he is kind of good. And I don't know if he's good, but I know the scheme is good. I'm going Brock Purdy. If Brock Purdy is healthy, Brock Purdy has got a good chance to finish a top 10 quarterback. In his starts last year, Jay, QB 18, this is points per game. QB 18, QB 8, QB 14, QB 13, QB 9, QB 5. And then when he got to the playoffs, he was really good in that Seattle game. So you're talking about a player who, on average, in his starts, was a top 10 quarterback. I mean, he was in your lineup. When you look at Purdy and you look at what he did last season, he was 5th in the NFL and a minimum of 100 pass attempts and EPA per drop back. He was 4th. The 49ers were 4th in the NFL in their run rate in 2022. They were 7th in time of possession. Now, what's interesting is San Francisco and Brock Purdy in particular was the 4th lowest ADOT in the NFL, 6.8. But you know who else has a low ADOT, Jay, as far as the quarterbacks and what they do? Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow, 4th lowest, 6.8 average depth of target, which tells me that the weapons that they have at their disposal are just really good. Quarterback, get the weapons the ball. Weapons can do what they need to do. And here's the big key to Brock Purdy being successful. 49ers defense, by far, number 1 in the NFL in net EPA per play for a defense. So you're talking about a defense that's going to have an offense in plus situations, their side of the 50, holding opposing teams, and just getting on top of people early, playing fast. If Brock is the starter from week 1, I think he's going to finish as a top 10 quarterback. If Brock Purdy is healthy and the starter, I think that's the guy that's going to post a top 10 fantasy finish, whether you like it or not. Jay, who do you got, and how do you feel about Brock?
I do like Brock. I think it was kind of an easy answer because we both love the 49ers, and obviously Brock Purdy is going to be great in that system. But the question wasn't to pick a young quarterback with upside playing on a great team. The question was to pick a guy who could be the next Geno Smith, who is left for dead, who's playing on a bad team, on a team that nobody wants any but these weapons. And I had to go with Jimmy Garoppolo because, Ray, as much as everyone says Jimmy Garoppolo's cooked, he's awful, and you can laugh at me in the chat, he is playing for a coach that he had a lot of success with in New England. Now, it was a long time ago, and I'll openly admit that. Jimmy G is going into his year 32 season, which isn't super old, hasn't looked so great in San Francisco, but there's a reason why he got signed to San Francisco, Ray, and do you know what that reason was? That was because he had a 2-game stretch in New England where he threw for 600 yards, and he had 4 touchdowns and 0 picks in a Josh McDaniels system. So you look at this system that they have now, the Raiders, you claim to be a Raider fan, so you hopefully know that the Raiders' defense is god-awful. Right? They play in a division where they're going to have to throw the ball. And in those games that he played under Josh McDaniels, he threw the ball 30 times a game. I think if you give Jimmy Garoppolo 30 pass attempts a game, he has an opportunity to finish high. And when you start looking at the odds and what he could do, he has the same odds as Jared Goff to lead the league in touchdowns. And everyone is all over Jared Goff. Oh, Jared Goff's going to have a great season. He's playing, with Ben Johnson, all this stuff. But people are just forgetting that the volume literally could be there. And this isn't even factoring in a Josh Jacobs holdout, where if Josh Jacobs doesn't play, they're going to have to throw the ball a ton. And again, Jimmy Garoppolo, for everything he's not, if you give the player the volume, he has an opportunity. And that's the reason why I do believe him. He has the same odds as Deshaun Watson, as Russell Wilson, and Derek Carr to lead the league in passing yards. Now, again, I wouldn't necessarily bet that, but the point is that he has a much better shot than the fantasy community is giving him. And so if a player could come out of nowhere and have a pretty good season, again, maybe not top 10, but still be a surprisingly high QB2, I'd be picking Jimmy Garoppolo because I think the pass attempts will be there. I think the team is bad enough. And so you look at all those things considered. And of course, Ray, I love me some DeVonta Adams. I have lots of DeVonta Adams shares. I think that he can elevate that offense as well and do great things for Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think coming back with his old OC, who he loved, that I'm sure he played very well. I know he played very well under, very efficient. I think Jimmy Garoppolo could be a surprise that nobody wants on their fantasy rosters this season.
Jay, listen, I didn't say anything. I'll let you have the floor. You were passionate. You brought good points to the table. Nobody really wants DeVonta Adams. I'm in these underdog drafts, and at the back of the first, you're like, man, I think I'll just take Garrett Wilson, CeeDee Lamb. I don't think I want to deal with DeVonta Adams. I don't know what's going to happen. And part of me does believe, I do agree. I think that the whole physical, I think Jimmy G is going to be the starter week 1. Let me just, long story short, all the stuff that we're hearing now, I think when it's all said and done, Jimmy Garoppolo's under center. No, I don't think it's going to be freaking Aiden O'Connell or whoever else they have at Brian Hoyer, whoever the backup quarterback is. No, I think it's going to be Garoppolo. I'm with you. It's a good call, Jay, because he could. Do they have the weapons? Adams, Austin
they have
Hooper,
Jacoby Myers, they have
Jacoby Myers,
right?
Hunter Renfrow,
Michael Mayer,
Jacobs.
There's worse receiving cores and weapons in the league for sure, right?
Okay. All right.
It's very comparable to the Rams system, right? You think about all the pieces they have, it's very comparable to the Rams. And I think probably you would take the Raiders' weapons over the Rams just slightly.
All right, Jay. This season's version of Josh Jacobs. All right. So a veteran running back who turned a big boost in usage into a career year and an elite RB1 fantasy campaign. Jay, this was a consensus sweep across the board. We all said the same damn thing. Who's the player that we're going to take, Jay, in this category?
Your boy out of Dallas, Tony Pollard, right? Tony Pollard, still without a running mate in Dallas, But it looks like, at least from the show notes, Ray, did you do a little film session
on
old Tony Pollard?
Yeah, I did do a little film session on Tony Pollard. But we got to look at the Tony Pollard highlights first. Tony Pollard, Mike Clay picked him. I picked him. You picked him. I mean, this is the only answer to the question. When you're talking about a veteran running back who could post an elite RB1 finish, it's TP time. It's Tony Pollard time. I do believe that he has the opportunity, the skill set, and is going to finish as an elite RB1. I wouldn't even be shocked, Jay, if Tony Pollard finishes as the RB1 this season. I did do a little film review because just sitting back, I wanted to just take a look and see like what kind of player, like let's go back and watch Tony Pollard, see what type of player he is, how he's going to get there. So coming out tomorrow, I've got a Tony Pollard film study session dropping on the channel, so make sure you tap into that. It'll release about noon tomorrow on Tuesday. So I think this is the only answer to the question. I'm sure you could think of some other veteran running backs, Jay.
Yeah, some people are saying in the chat, Alexander Madison, right? Are we picking Alexander Madison to finish top 5? Or J.K. Dobbins was the other one that I thought about as well. But It's just, I think, I understand why you may say Dobbins, but Pollard is just a different animal, right? Different animal, and I think he really could, like you've said, he should be in everyone's top 5, especially for a redraft, and he could easily be the RB1. It literally comes down to is how much volume does he ultimately get, and what do they do at the position? Because they're probably going to add somebody. We'll see who it is. It's not going to matter, in my opinion. Yeah. But if it's a more substantial guy, it could matter a little bit more, or it could take away from his like ceiling volume. But again, if he walks into this situation that they have right now, my goodness, he would see a ton of work. It's just, can he ultimately make it happen in 2023? We're going to see.
All right, Jay. We got another one. This season's version of Rhamondre Stevenson / Tony Pollard. So basically, Stevenson and Pollard last year were mid-round flyers who earned larger roles during a breakout fantasy season. So Mike Clay has one Rachaad White as this year's version of Rhamondre Stevenson / Tony Pollard. Jay, where's my girl at? Where's my girl Joe at? Joe, get your ass in here, girl, because I got something for you. I think that this year's version of Tony Pollard, this year's version of, who do you have? Rhamondre Stevenson, a player who's going to earn a larger workload this year, who people kind of don't really want, kind of have a nice little breakout season this year. He's kind of already broken out. Antonio Gibson, Washington Commanders running back, Jay. Last year, JRich McKinnon, at freaking 30 years old, had his best statistical receiving season of his career under Eric Bieniemy / Andy Reid. Brian Robinson can't catch the ball. Like, he just can't. That's just not what he does. He's a two-down grinder. Just turn around, hand B-Rob the ball. He can do that. That's fine. B-Rob can absorb 20 carries. But in fantasy, we know that a target is worth, 1.2 something times more than a carry?
Way more, yeah.
Put Antonio Gibson in the JRich McKinnon role, and I think everybody that drafted him late, that got him as a cheap throw-in as a trade, I think this Gibson really, Jay, I'm going to say this, man. Like, real talk. He feels like the type of player that we're never going to value him as some bell cow hammer, turn around, give him the ball 25 times a game running back. But can he turn himself into just an elite pass-catching weapon that can carry the ball, right? That can tote the rock, but is just dynamic in space. I can see him having a monster season in the receiving game and getting a nice contract somewhere to come right in and do just that. And then all of a sudden, he's turned into a bigger version of what Danny Woodhead was for a long time. Just a dynamic PPR weapon. So I am bullish on Antonio Gibson with Eric Bieniemy. Okay. And in particular, this offense just doesn't have a lot, Jay. We love Terry McLaurin. Yeah. Great. Tight end, Logan Thomas, John Bates, Cole Turner. Receivers, we got McLaurin, Curtis Samuel.
Dotson. Not disrespectful
Dotson.
In the notes.
I'm not being Dotson. I'm not being Dotson. I'm not being disrespectful, but I do like the switch, and I do think that Antonio Gibson with Bieniemy, if it doesn't happen this year, it's a wrap, right? If it doesn't happen this year, it's a wrap. But right here, he said a bigger Danny Woodhead. I would love it if that's what Antonio Gibson turns into. I mean, Danny wasn't turning, and that's my boy, right? He wasn't turning around just toting the rock 20 times a game. Just let him do his thing. This is what he did in college. He was a receiver.
Yep.
Turn running back. we've been asking for this for like 3 years. Just let him be that role. Put him in the J.D. McKissic role. I think Antonio Gibson could be this year's Rhamondre Tony Pollard.
Okay. I do like it, though. You made a lot of good points. And I think the big X factor is how does Bieniemy ultimately utilize him? Because that backfield last year was an absolute disaster. And I think this year with Bieniemy, they take a lot of positive strides in that department, and they do have a pretty good offense. I think the only problem for me is it does hinge on Sam Howell being pretty good. And if he isn't pretty good, then it's probably not going to work out because, as you mentioned, it will have to come in the receiving game. But if he can do it on his own, which maybe he can, it could be a pretty good option. I went with a slightly higher upside offense. And so I went with James Cook. Ray. And the main reason why I went with James Cook is Josh Allen in the offense. But the concerning thing for people who do want Dameon Harris and do think that Dameon Harris could be a thing is that, Ray, did you know that the Buffalo Bills were the only team last season that didn't have 300 carries with their running backs? The only team in the NFL that did not have 300 carries with their running back. So if you're going to make your way on offense for the Buffalo Bills at running back, it's going to have to be through the receiving game, which we all know James Cook is the option there. Gabe Davis was hurt last year and didn't play too well. You have Stephon Diggs. They drafted Dalton Kincaid, but they need more out of the backfield. And this is still under the assumption that Devin Singletary had 50 targets last season. You give those to James Cook, a more dynamic weapon in this offense with a lot of touchdown upside. Another thing to point out, Ray, the RB1 on the Buffalo Bills scored 70% of the team's rushing touchdowns last season. So if James Cook can be that bell cow, quote unquote bell cow on Buffalo, which isn't a bell cow in the NFL because they don't run the ball a lot, but can be the primary pass catcher, can run for the majority of the touchdowns, and still see some rushing down work, I think that James Cook could be a surprise. I was going to go with Cam Akers here because he seems like an obvious candidate, but a little bit too high. Went with the pass catcher in James Cook because I do believe that they drafted him for a reason. And for everything that they did this offseason, I don't think they gave, Josh Allen enough weapons around him to really thrive, unless, of course, they ultimately decide that James Cook is going to be the guy. And we've talked about this a lot. Dameon Harris's contract does not lend itself to a starter role or necessarily even making the roster. And so you look at what they have at running back now in their backfield, it's James Cook and it's everybody else. And it's just whether they ultimately can commit to James Cook for this season. Last season, he got off to a rough foot, fumbling his first carry. But I think this season, he could be in line for a much bigger role, filling in that Devin Singletary role, and be pretty damn good for fantasy this season.
All right, James Cook. And interesting enough, Jay, I've got a film session dropping on one James Cook on Friday. I went and looked at I wanted to take a look at, just because I was thinking, can he do it? So I wanted to look at his best statistical game, and I broke down every snap, every carry, and that'll be dropping on Friday. And I'm going to just tell you right now, I got a lot of concerns about James Cook, man. You watch the tape, and there's a lot of concerns. I don't know if he's going to be that kind of running back, man, but that drops on Friday, so make sure you're tapped into the channel for that one, Jay. Let's go to the next one. I want to know who you think this season's Dameon Pierce, Isaiah Pacheco, Tyler Algier, a day 3 rookie who quickly found their way on the field and into a significant role, will be. Mike Clay took one Roschon Johnson, the running back out of Chicago. And I'll just say this. I saw, and I forgot who, it was not an original tweet of me, but I saw somebody tweet out, if the Bears were confident in Khalil Shakir, they wouldn't have signed Deontay Foreman and drafted Khalil Herbert. Yeah, they wouldn't have drafted Roschon Johnson and brought in Deontay Foreman. So I do think Roschon Johnson is probably going to find his way on the field very early for Chicago. But for me, Jay, the Dameon Pierce, Isaiah Pacheco, Tyler Algier, and I don't think any of these day 3 rookie running backs are going to replicate what they did as rookies. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with Cincinnati Bengals rookie running back Chase Brown. Jay, right now, depth charts don't really mean a lot, but behind Joe Mixon, it looks like, I'm looking on ESPN, it's Chase Brown in that second chair, right? Travion Williams, Chris Evans, we know Chris Evans is no good. He's not going to factor in, and Travion Williams has done little to nothing so far in his 4 years in the NFL. Chase Brown, fantastic running back out of Illinois, All-American. Struggled quite a bit at the Senior Bowl, in my opinion, but he is very fast. He's put together pretty well, and he can catch the ball a little bit out of the backfield. And we know Joe Mixon, even at, what he can do is absorb carries. It feels like Zeke Elliott. It feels like Joe Mixon is going to look a lot like Zeke Elliott last year. And one of the things that is really evident when you watch Tony Pollard tape is just how much more explosive Tony Pollard was than Zeke. Like, it's just, you watch it and you're like, this is a no-brainer. Like, give him the ball. I think we're going to see some of the same things from Chase Brown and Joe Mixon. I think when Joe Mixon gets the ball, it's going to look like Joe Mixon. And then number 30 is going to get the ball, and you're going to be like, who's that? Who's that guy? Yeah. He's light-skinned, so he kind of looks like Austin Eckler a little bit. So you're going to be like, who's this number 30? Who's this Chase Brown? In the type of offense like this where, Joe Burrow had no problem checking down to Samaje Perine. I mean, Joe Burrow and the Bengals got Perine a damn starting job in Denver this year. So if I was banking on one of these day 3 rookie running backs to earn a role for their team early in the season, I'm not even going to say significant role because I don't know how that's going to work out, but my pick would be Chase Brown from the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And to be honest, I didn't want to pick the same guy as you, but I think you nailed it. That would definitely be the pick, especially, we expect Joe Mixon to be on the roster now, but definitely at the time he was drafted, that wasn't so much a guarantee. And that's why they took Chase Brown as a depth piece at running back. And obviously Mike Clay had Roschon Johnson, which I don't know how much I agree with that, because when you look at the running back breakdown for the Chicago Bears, it doesn't look that great, especially if they're splitting carries. But Ray, once again, I had to get real dirty because I was struggling.
Dirty.
I got dirty. I went down in the dumps. I was searching high and low.
You look like my son's toilet right now. It is dirty.
This is not. So I just need you guys to give me a minute. I will get through my talking points and we will discuss a little bit. But I had to go with Tampa Bay
Who do you think
Buccaneers
is going to be
running back Sean Tucker. Ray, give me the womp womp. It's okay.
I'm not going to give you the womp womp. Go ahead.
You look at Sean Tucker. Oh, man. He's just mammoth, man. But the big thing here with Tucker, and the reason why I do believe there is an opportunity for him, one, the Bucs backfield is wide open. Yeah, sure, Rachaad White, blah, 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 blah. Okay, no one cares about that. But the reason why I really like this is because by the offensive coordinator, he's got comps to Nick Chubb. Not to say he's going to be Nick Chubb, but the running style and the scheme that they run, he ran at Syracuse. So new Bucs offensive coordinator Dave Cannells runs a scheme featuring a wide zone and mid zone runs. Cannells has likened Tucker to former Seahawks running back Thomas Rawls. So he's from the Seahawks system, a place where they use 2 running backs. And as an undrafted free agent himself, he was a longtime coach in Seattle, and so we know how much they believe about draft capital there. So Tucker was a key cog in the same mid-zone, wide zone scheme at Syracuse, where he ran for 2,500 yards and 23 touchdowns in his last 2 seasons. So again, it's not to say that I believe Sean Tucker's a great running back because he already has so much to overcome with his health. But if the coaching staff brought in a player that they believe can fit into their system and already had success running a similar scheme, he's the type of guy that you could see finding success. Because Ray, you talk about this all the time. We see running backs and we don't always know the scheme they're going to be going into and running if you aren't really diving deep into the OC and into what they're doing. When they bring in a guy who already was supremely talented, who we like the tape of, and they brought him in knowing that he has had a ton of success in a similar scheme, I don't believe Rachaad White is a great running back. We saw some okay things from him last year, but if Sean Tucker came in and assumed first and second down duties, he would be an absolute steal in every single draft you got him in. Not saying you have to have him, but these are the points and reasons why he could be a guy who emerges. And when you're looking at Zach Evans, Keaton Mitchell, Dendrick Prince, like guys that I believe have no shot at a role, I think the Bucs backfield is pretty wide open. And just if everything clicks, maybe Sean Tucker finds a role in the NFL.
Man, I mean, the comments are flying right now, Jay. You got the people. There's a lot of support for you, JRich. There's a lot of Sean Tucker support. So I want to clear up, first of all, let's clear up the number 44. He wears number 44 because he went to where? Syracuse. Who do some people say is the best running back in NFL history? Jim Brown. Jim Brown wore number 44. Jim Brown went to where? Syracuse. So that's why Sean Tucker picked 44. It's an ode to Jim Brown, an ode to Syracuse, and an ode to what some believe is the greatest football player to ever play the game. So that's why he wears number 44. Now, Sean Tucker getting on the field and producing,
different conversation.
I don't know, Jay. It's ambitious. I love the ode to Jim Brown, but I'm just looking at the depth. I am just the messenger. RB1, Rachaad White. RB2, Chase Edmonds. RB3, Keyshawn Vaughn. RB4, Patrick Laird. No Sean Tucker at all. Not even mentioned. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, man. I think if they gave him an opportunity, he probably could produce. I mean, we've seen players like Craig Reynolds come literally off of his couch and tote the rock in the NFL. There have been a litany of players that you've seen come in, get opportunity, and are good in spurts. Phillip Lindsay was a back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher.
Yep.
Do I think Phillip Lindsay is better than Sean Tucker? No, I don't believe so. Phillip Lindsay had to claw his way as an UDFA, and he's much smaller, so is there a chance for Tucker to do it? Sure. And I don't think any of these running backs in front of him are particularly good either. Patrick Laird, get out of here. Keyshawn Vaughn, stop it. Chase Edmonds, move around. Rashad White, mid, right? So there's a shot, but is he going to get the opportunity, man? I don't know. I'll say this. Tampa Bay is so bad, they should let any and every young player play. They really should.
Absolutely.
This team is so bad. Put Trey Palmer out there. Put Sean Tucker. Put who's the Payne Durham, the tight end. Put them all out there. This team is awful. This team is awful offensively. So very, very bold call, Jay. But I'll just say this: if he claws his way onto the field, what are you doing with Tucker in Dynasty? What are you doing?
You got to flip him. Flip him immediately.
Immediately
for a third.
Immediately.
But again, and people are saying Kenny McIntosh as well. Do you feel any? I didn't want to pick McIntosh because he's not going to get a primary rushing role, so he's very limited from that perspective, right? Like we know that it's going to be Walker, it's going to be Charbonnet.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I really, when it's all said and done, I think it's going to be Kenneth Walker again. I know a lot of people are pumping up Charbs.
Ooh, really?
I do. I think it's going to be Kenneth Walker again. I think Charbonnet is going to be the backup running back. He's going to be a spell back. He'll have his spurts, but I think it's going to be a lot of Charbonnet. And yes, Kanja, if Sean Tucker pops in preseason, if he makes the roster, you trade him. Don't hold him, man. It's a UDFA. Just historically, those are just very bad bets to bank on long-term in Dynasty. All right, Jay, we got a couple of more. Let's go really quickly, and let's go through this season's version of Jamaal Williams, a veteran running back who overcame limited receiving. Jamaal Williams didn't catch shit last year. Nothing. 9 passes, I think, is what he caught last year. But could be a top 15 running back based on touchdown usage and volume. Mike Clay took Isaiah Pacheco from the Kansas City Chiefs. We know he ain't catching no passes because they brought back JRich McKinnon. I just took the guy that replaced
low-hanging fruit.
I just took the guy that replaced him, David Montgomery, because in this Detroit offense, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be the pass-catching running back. David Montgomery should assume the Jamaal Williams role. And he's going literally like 45 picks after Jahmyr Gibbs on Underdog right now. So you're talking about a value. If he's not going to catch the passes, he better be the goal line back. And I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity in the same system, the same scheme, to literally be this year's version of Jamaal Williams. Jay, David Montgomery is my pick.
Yeah, I mean, you made the correct selection. I'm definitely with you. He'd be my number 1 pick. But I think the funny thing is, and actually Jonah said this in the comments, the only player who can be the next Jamaal Williams is, in fact, Jamaal Williams himself playing for the New Orleans Saints this season. And you look at what he did last season, there's a reason why they brought him in. They need to be better at the goal line, an area where Alvin Kamara really struggled last season, in those short area, in that goal line situations. Yes, he'll be using the receiving game, assuming he's suspended, which it does seem like he's not going to be based on everything that we're seeing. But you look at what Jamaal Williams did last season, that's exactly why they brought him in. They used to have Mark Ingram in this role. Now they bring in Jamaal Williams, and he can do exactly that. Short area, score the touchdowns, and again, playing in a god-awful division, playing 14 dome games, playing in dome games basically throughout the entire fantasy playoffs. Jamaal Williams will be a viable fantasy option this season, and a guy who could definitely score plenty of touchdowns in this Saints offense. This is an area where I think they really needed to improve because Kamara has really struggled over recent years. He's been declining in an area where Jamaal Williams has struggled. The next Jamaal Williams, Ray, will be, in fact, the one and only Jamaal Williams.
That was a good one. That was well played. My only issue is I think it was, and I don't know if the quote came from Roster Watch, but the tweet was a Roster Watch tweet. And I think they were reporting on Alvin Kamara and something that somebody had. They don't think Alvin Kamara is missing any time. 0.
Yeah.
If AK-40, let me just say this right now to everybody listening. Underdog, Redraft, Dynasty, I don't care what it is. I cannot stop drafting. I think he is the biggest value on Underdog right now. If Alvin Kamara is not suspended, Alvin Kamara is leading that team in touchdowns. He's probably going to be close to leading them in receptions. He's going to smash again. And his ADP is falling a little bit. He's being drafted in like the 110 range on Underdog.
Yeah.
Taking JaVonta Williams, Rashad White, Isaiah Pacheco, all these running backs going on. Was he like RB 30 something in Dynasty? If Kamara's not missing any time, Jay, give me all the AK-41 I can get. All of it. I want Alvin Kamara. If he is not suspended, I think that's a big problem for
He's drafted right beside A.J. Dillon and Samaje Perine.
Come on, bro. Like, come on, man. Samaje Perine, A.J. Dillon.
Insane.
I think people who got him for the low, who have drafted him late, who spent low auction dollars on him, when he's on the field and playing, you're going to be like, damn, that was the best $11 I've ever spent on a player.
Yep.
Thank God I didn't draft Samaje Perine over that Alvin Kamara. So I'm pretty excited for him if he's going to be on the field and playing with Derek Carr. Jay, you couldn't wait to put. I didn't even pick this player because I knew you would take him. I have no highlights for any of them. This season's version of A.J. Brown, Amari Cooper, Christian Kirk, those three were veteran wide receivers who took their games to a new level after transitioning to a new team in the offseason. Mike Clay's got DJ Moore, my boy, Ike's boy, your boy, all of our boys, DJ Moore, being that player, that wide receiver who's going to take his game to the next level with Justin Fields. I selected, and this player's already been good, but he's had like a down year. It's been kind of shitty. I think Brandon Cooks is going to remind everybody that he is still a really good receiver with Dallas. So my pick for the veteran that changed teams and is going to have a revival of a fantasy season, I think it's going to be Brandon Cooks. I am very excited to see him single covered away from CeeDee Lamb. Defense is having to focus on Tony Pollard and CD. I think Brandon Cooks is in for a pretty big season with Dak Prescott here, year one in Dallas. Who's your pick?
The pick, it's in the chat. People know me. They know the pick. It's my boy,
your
Mr.
boy.
Gambling Suspension himself, Calvin Ridley, baby. It has to be. It has to be, Ray. It has to be Calvin Ridley. And what's hilarious, right? Clay has DJ Moore, Justin Fields, Chicago. Forget all that. Forget all of that because Calvin Ridley has Trevor Lawrence, the 101 in the same draft, a player with a real quarterback in a great system, on a great offense, in a terrible division. Calvin Ridley is going to eat this season. I love me some Calvin Ridley. Yes, this had to be the pick. And it's so funny because the one thing that I've heard over and over about Calvin Ridley, he hates more than anything, he was drafted behind DJ Moore. And he still hates the Panthers because of it. So anytime Calvin Ridley plays the Panthers, make sure you play him because he gives them hell every single time.
I think I am almost positive that the Jaguars' Week 17 opponent this year is the Panthers. I'm almost positive. It's Bryce Young versus Trevor Lawrence in Week 17. Check that for me. Fact check me. I think it's Bryce versus TLaw in Week 17. And Ridley should be happy. He's getting drafted ahead of DJ Moore. Is it?
Christmas Eve.
I've been doing
New Year's Eve.
I've done a lot of underdog drafts, man. But Ridley is being drafted ahead of DJ Moore right now in underdog by a few spots. So there goes this season's answer to that question. So let's go. We've got a couple of more, Jay. This season's DeVonta Smith, all right? A former early round pick who exploded onto the fantasy lineup in his second season, and you had to start him weekly. All right, so talking about a former highly drafted rookie, a highly drafted player in their second year, going to elevate their game here in year two. Mike Clay took the Green Bay Packers wide receiver Christian Watson, playing with Jordan Love this year as his former early round pick to explode and ascend as a weekly fantasy lock in his lineups in year two. Jay, I literally had the guy that you have first, then I switched it to this player. Yeah, when we had the show doc pulled up, I had your guy as mine, and then I switched it. But for me, second-year receiver who I believe could truly just be volumed his way into a fantasy lock and pretty significant, right? Because I just don't know if they have anybody else, but it's Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Drake London. I think Drake London could be this season's version of DeVonta Smith. When you look at the Atlanta Falcons receiving core right now, it is literally Drake London and a whole lot of nothing around that offensive pass catching group. You do have Kyle Pitts there. We saw the chemistry between Drake London and Desmond Ridder last year when Kyle Pitts was out. And so far, early reports and offseason workouts is Drake London looks a lot better than he did last year. And for those of you who all forgot, Drake London was coming off of his serious injury as a rookie. He broke his leg his final season at USC. So he was just really getting back to, he didn't even test. He couldn't even test through the process because he couldn't run. I think we're going to see a big jump from Drake London this year. Now, there are some concerns in his game. He does not do a lot after the catch, Jay. But remember, when I'm talking about the Holy Trinity, air yards, yak, market share is there, air yards are there. If he can just maintain a high level in those two categories, he's going to be a really good fantasy receiver. I think Drake London is poised to really essentially break out and ascend, and I think we're going to get a really good gauge on the type of player he's going to be for us in fantasy this season. I like year 2 Drake London. I'm still a little hesitant if he can hit that elite territory, but I do think DeVonta Smith's not elite, right? He's not. He's really good. He's really good, but he's not elite. There's a difference between Smitty and Jamaal. There's a difference between Smitty and a Tyreek Hill or a Cooper Kupp. I think Drake London can position himself right inside of that T. Higgins, DeVonta Smith kind of range, DK Metcalf, and be valued as such. So that's my pick for the year 2 guy that should be locked in. Who you got?
Yeah, it's funny because I actually was going to pick Drake London until you had it in the show doc. That would have been my first pick. So it's funny that you took my pick and I apparently kind of took your pick. But, we're not taking Garrett Wilson. We're not taking Chris Olave. Those guys are already superstars, man. There's no way. But my guy, very simple, easiest case ever. With DeAndre Hopkins seemingly not going to Tennessee, the answer is and will be Treylon Burks. For everything that Treylon Burks may have been last season, he's going to be much better this year. We've seen it in training camp. We've seen it in all the reports. He's much more prepared for his second season than he was for his first year. I don't hate Tannehill at quarterback because, again, I like Tannehill at quarterback. It's the system and the scheme. If they throw more this season, he should be much better. And again, I don't love the system, but if you're the primary target on any team in the NFL, you are worth starting almost every single week in fantasy, at least as a flex option. And if Treylon Burks is as good as we expect him to be, then he could easily be a wide receiver 2-3 on the year. And I think of all the guys, you talk about Drake London, who already has, a very high value, Treylon Burks could be a guy who really ascends in value into that tier. So I think that's where as well Treylon Burks has a lot going for him, is that for all the years that A.J. Brown was undervalued as a receiver, it was because he played in Tennessee, not because the talent wasn't there. And then all of a sudden he goes to a place where he can realize his full talent. He's a big time receiver, but I do like Treylon Burks quite a bit this year as the number 1 target in Tennessee. And I think he can easily be this year's version of what DeVonta Smith was last season.
Man, you look at him right here. This was my guy, man. I am all in on Treylon Burks here in year 2. He's slimmed down. I'm very bullish on Treylon Burks, so I love the call, Jay. Love the pick. Got 2 more categories, and then we will wrap this thing up. This season's version, Jay, of Evan Engram / David Njoku. Evan Engram and Njoku were former early round draft picks who finally made the leap into must-start territory later down the line in their career. Didn't hit right away. It took them a little bit of time. They've had up and down roller coaster careers. Interesting. Mike Clay.
Low-hanging fruit.
Mike Clay. Why would you do this?
This is embarrassing.
Mike Clay picks Kyle Pitts.
Wow. 4th overall pick, Kyle Pitts. Shocking.
I am so. If this is your fault, because
why
you come on here weekly. We only do the show once. I can't imagine what it's going to be like when we do this thing 3 days a week in season. You come on here and spew blasphemy every single time about Kyle Pitts being not that good. He's not that good. He stinks. And now you got people like Mike Clay thinking finally he can make the leap after he had 1,000 damn yards as a rookie, which is unheard of from the tight end position. I blame you because you do this shit with Kyle Pitts, and I really think at this point, like it's starting to get, it's borderline disrespectful, man. It's borderline.
Okay, hold on. What's his over-under for receiving yards?
I don't give a damn what any of that says. We're not talking about talking about fantasy. Go look at the over-under for all the tight ends for their receiving yards, right? Outside of Kelsey, it's probably not good. But for you to continue to do this, now you got Mike Clay doing this. This is crazy. Kyle Pitts is his pick. For me, Jay, I think the tight end that sort of had this up and down roller coaster career, He was a former
really like the
first-round pick. I don't like the pick of Kyle Pitts, but I like my pick. The tight end that's kind of had this up-and-down career, former first-round pick that I think could make a leap and be a must-start tight end. Doesn't mean his dynasty value is sky high, but you're just like, I've got to lock this guy into my lineup every week. Let's go back to the mental savant, Bryce Young. And I'm going to go with Hayden Hurst in Carolina. Hayden Hurst was brought in. I think he got a 3-year deal in Carolina, and we know that they have no tight end of consequence. Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas, woof. Sad trombone, those guys. Hayden Hurst was pretty good with Joe Burrow last year. We know that Joe Burrow is going to utilize the superstars that are Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But when you look at Bryce Young, I mean, hell, Bryce Young got damn Cam Latu drafted earlier than expected. So when you've got a young rookie quarterback that's probably going to make the right decisions, not force the ball, take what's there, I think Hayden Hurst, his veteran leadership, his presence, former first-round pick, is going to be a welcome sight for one Bryce Young. And no, I don't think Hayden Hurst is going to make some astronomical leap in his dynasty value. He's like 30 years old right now, but a tight end that you might be getting super cheap that is in your lineup weekly, I think Hayden Hurst has that potential to be an Evan Engram, David Njoku type old veteran late breakout tight end. What do you think about Hayden Hurst, and who do you have?
I really liked your pick, actually. I thought it was sneaky. It was, you're all in on Bryce Young, so might as well pick Hayden Hurst. So I definitely like that selection. But I did go in a slightly different direction. I went with one of the many next Robert Gronkowskis in the NFL. And I went with Mike Gesicki, right? Playing for my fandom New England Patriots. Bill O'Brien now going to be the OC for the Patriots, running a lot of 12 personnel. We see Hunter Henry. We know what he is. He's not super athletic, but for a team that's devoid of all weapons, basically, on offense, if they don't get DeAndre Hopkins, which I think would be a big hit to Gesicki if he did ultimately come about, look at him doing that gritty, looking phenomenal. But playing in New England in this 12 personnel system, I think he really could have a pretty high touchdown ceiling, because as much as Hunter Henry is great at scoring touchdowns, I think Gesicki's probably even better. And so in the red zone, I think he could be a true threat. Not a guy you want to start every week, but again, if the volume is there in the system, I think he could be a guy that you do end up starting. That again, we're talking a guy who's in the 20 plus in ADP at tight end. So Gesicki's way down there, and a guy you can basically get for free right now. And in that system, we've seen them use 2 tight ends a lot. So it sounds crazy, but he could have a pretty high touchdown ceiling in New England.
Ike said that was the worst gritty of all time. Oh, Mike Gesicki. And he's going to keep doing it, too, because everybody talks about him. All right, Jay. Final question of the show. Who is going to be this year's version of Pat Freiermuth? Pat Freiermuth emerged into a tight end 1 during his second NFL season. Mike Clay took Chiggy Okonkwo. Yeah. I love Chig. I'm a big Chig fan. Yep. Athletic. He is not what you would consider a traditional tight end. You're not going to line him up in line. And you've seen him get physical, and he can block, but his best skill set is utilized as a big receiver. I really like Chig. I thought that was a smooth choice by Mike Clay. Jay, but for me, and there's a report out there that starting tight end or former starting tight end that tore his ACL and MCL could potentially be cut. You look at the Arizona Cardinals right now, Jay, and there's not a lot of options in the pass-catching room. So for me, I think a second-year tight end that can emerge as a tight end 1 is none other than Trey McBride. I am very excited about Trey McBride this year. Again, we talk about Alvin Kamara being a value on Underdog. I've got so much damn Trey McBride because you can get him in the 20th round. Damn near the last round of Underdog. And he is probably, Jay, I don't even think he's probably, he is their starting tight end. How could why would you not want a starting tight end on a team that doesn't really have a big receiver? Like, think about the Arizona Cardinals starting wide receivers right now. And I'm not looking at a depth chart, but I'm going to assume it's Hollywood Brown at the X, Greg Dortch at the Z, and Rondell Moore in the slot. Or they'll put Michael Wilson out there. So you've got one guy over 5'10", literally one receiver over 5'10" out of the 4 that could potentially start, unless they brought in somebody. Did they bring in a chosen Robbie Anderson? Did they bring somebody? I don't know who they have. But Trey McBride is the biggest option that they have. Like, this is a small team. It's a small wide receiver room. Trey McBride's got the draft capital. He was a second-round pick, pretty athletic, played decent towards the end of the season last year. So when you're talking about a second-year tight end that can emerge as a tight end 1 this year, give me all the Trey McBride I can buy, man. Give me all the Trey McBride I can get. Let's go.
Yeah, you nailed it. He's the guy. It's Chiggy and it's McBride. And those are pretty much the only two. I think you could make a case for Dulcich. But Ray, I took your boy out of Dallas.
You did.
Jake Ferguson. Because again, this is a system that has heavily utilized the tight end over the past, 5-6 seasons. Doesn't really matter who the OC has been. They've used the tight end a lot. And if you're looking at a sleeper tight end, you have to look to Dallas as an option. Doesn't mean that we're going to pick the right guy or we're going to know who it's going to be. But if Jake Ferguson is the starting tight end and assumes that 4 or 5 target role a game, he could be a guy that you do start in fantasy. And again, I would be much prefer to have Chigokonkwo or McBride. But again, Ferguson is also going to be in the best offense of the 3, could see the most volume of the 3 outside of maybe McBride because he's going to probably be the second or third option on Arizona. But with Dak Prescott, with all those weapons around him, Jake Ferguson's going to be uncovered all game, every game. And so at that point, he could be a guy who does see some targets. It's tough talking second-year tight ends because tight ends are awful, and there's only so many good ones. But I think there is a potential for Ferguson or a Dallas tight end, if I'm going to put it more technically, to have a role. But this was a second-year tight end to make the leap, and I think Ferguson could be a guy who does that.
That's a good pick, man. And we're going to know real early. Dallas's training camp starts in a couple of days. We'll know. We'll get a feel. And even Marcus Mosher, who does the Locked On Cowboys, said he's curious to see the rotation at tight end. Like, that's one of the things that he's most curious about is how much Luke Schoonmaker are we going to see, how much Ferguson. Yep. Now, I think the thing that's helping out Ferguson is Schoonmaker I think he had a foot injury, Jay. Like, during the really? OTAs and minicamp, he was in a boot. So we'll see if he's ready. But, yeah, looking at the Cardinals depth chart, Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, and Greg Dortch are the 3 projected starting wide receivers. So they have no receiver over 5'9" on their starting roster. So I think Trey McBride should be in for a big season. All right, Jay.
Yeah.
That's it, baby.
That's it. That's the show. That's the show.
This year's version of last year's stars, it is tough, but it's fun. It's fun, and that's what we want to do on the channel. We want to have some fun. We want to provide some actionable insight, have some fun, and just talk some ball. So appreciate everybody. Joe, thank you, my girl. She said we needed this episode, picking bones out there for fantasy football content. Yeah, it's tough, y'all, but listen, take some time. This is like think about it, y'all. In 3-4 weeks, it's full-fledged football. We've got preseason, Hall of Fame game, college football's back. So if you're out here and you watch this show and you support, thank you first and foremost. But take some time these next couple of weeks to just decompress, get all the fantasy content out of your head. Just get ready because it's going to be a fun season. It's going to be an exciting one from the NFL. Look how many great young players. We're all excited about these rookies. And then the college season, Jay, with Caleb and May and Marvin Harrison and all. This is going to be a fun season. So this is the calm before the storm. Take a little bit of time, chill out, watch, tap into everything that we're doing at Destination Devi, put the pods on, but just have some fun before we get into the grind because it's going to get real nasty here pretty soon in these fantasy streets. So for everybody out there, if you guys aren't familiar, in our show description, there is a link to our All Gas newsletter. Free content. Our boy Brandon runs our newsletter content, and we put that out every single week. Subscribe to that. I promise you, we don't spam you with bullshit. We don't even have the infrastructure to spam you right now. So the only thing you'll get is the newsletter when you sign up for that. JRich, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. Some people still didn't know that we have our own podcast now. Untitled drops on Saturday. JRich has a new show, Straight to the Bank, that comes out every single Tuesday, as well as all the other content creators, Scott Connor, Chase and Cody, Gene and Ike, Adam and Mike from the 4D crew coming over and dropping content for y'all every single week. And we are very, 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 very close to launching DestinationDevi.com. We are in the finishing touches, the final touches of finishing up the website. So
leaking it.
Yes. Pretty excited about that. DestinationDevi.com. So if y'all want to write, hit us up. If you're a content creator, you want to write articles, hit us up. Destination. Hit JRich up. DM JRich.
But yeah, actually, it must be nice to put this out there and then have your DMs closed on Twitter. Great.
They'll be
DMing me instead.
Don't
this
DM
is
me.
what you do. Don't DM me because you can't. So just DM JRich.
If you'd like to write and use Grammarly and all of that. But we appreciate everybody tapping in. Jay, you want to say anything to the people before we get out of here?
Yes, Ray.
Wait.
Super chats?
Record scratch. Super chats, baby. Come on, JRich.
Super chats.
Get on your job, man. Come on, baby. Yeah, all right. Here we go. Stanley, what's up, baby?
What we got?
All right. Stanley says, yeah, I seen Lil Baby at that party. That's why I listened to R&B. Oh, boy. Stanley, not a Lil Baby fan. Okay. All right. I love you, Stanley. I love you, man. All right. Let's see. Got another one from Stanley. I like May from UNC as the best quarterback in college.
That's fine.
Listen, I think they're going JB says analytically he's his QB1 in the database. So we'll see how that plays out. I think there are going to be a lot of people, Jay, who think that Drake May is just as good, if not better, than Caleb Williams. We will debate that when we get there, but there are a lot of people who do believe that Drake May is just as good as Caleb Williams, all right? Got another one right here from Mix. What's going on, Mix? Kebab, Bab. To get your team over the top, which veteran wide receiver would you be targeting? Cooper Kupp, DeVonta Adams, or Tyreek? And what would you be willing to offer for them picks-wise? Great question. JRich. So, for me,
is this a cost?
Well, he's saying sure, you can say at cost, but he's saying if you wanted one of them, what would you be willing to give up picks-wise to acquire these guys? Who would you pick? Kupp, Adam, or Tyreek? If you can only select one of these receivers to sort of go into battle with, right? Push your team over the top. Which one are you taking?
I would take Tyreek if I could only pick one.
Same. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I like the quarterback.
But he's going to be the most
there.
expensive too.
Yes.
Most
he
likely,
would be the most expensive. Would you give up a random?
So would you rather go Kupp or Adams? Because I think we're both in line. Give up a first. Probably don't give up more than that.
I'd give up. I don't think you have to give up a first to get Cooper Kupp. I traded Amon-Ra St. Brown for Cooper Kupp and a first. I got Kupp in the first for Amon-Ra in a couple of leagues. Exactly.
That's a good trade.
I mean, people they don't want these old receivers. Oh, he's 30, 31, 32. Tyreek Hill's going to retire in 3 years. Can't trade for him.
Yeah.
Who the fuck cares if he retires in 3 years? I'm playing for this year and next year. So picks-wise, I would if all it cost me was a random 24 first to get Tyreek Hill, I'm sending
you're
it
competitive
in a
first,
heartbeat.
right? Yeah.
Like, it not even, because it's a bet against, like, that'd be a bad bet on the other side. Like, my team is good and you want my first? Have it. Give me Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is going to be better than any Malik neighbors that you can get in 2024. I don't want Jatavian Sanders. Give me fucking Tyreek Hill. So I would easily give up a first-round pick. And if I had to throw in some podunk rookie because they just have to have some, take my Marvin Mims in a first. Give me your Tyreek Hill. Like, take them.
Yeah.
Take my Jaden Reed in the first. If that's what's going to tickle your fancy and get you off of that Tyreek Hill, like, let's get it, baby. Like, I think all three of those guys are dope. You know what I'm saying?
But you would rank them Hill, Kupp, Adams in that order. And I think I'd give up a first for all three of those guys.
Easy. If you're a contender, easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
Right?
Easily.
Yeah. I would too. I would too.
One
think
more.
I'd probably with the same order.
Stanley said, shout out to Stanley, sent another trooper jet. Ray, pick Rodriguez from Kentucky. Oh, this must have been the
UDFA running back.
The day three running back that can. I mean, if Brian Robinson gets hurt, I mean, he's B-Rob.
That's fair.
I read I think the back you want from Washington, I think is Antonio Gibson, Jay. I really do.
For sure.
I think it's Antonio Gibson. But Stanley, man, appreciate you. Appreciate everybody in the building. Hit the music now, Jay. We're going to hit the outro. Hit the music now. Get the music. We appreciate everybody being in the building, man. This is the Wake Up Show with Ray G and JRich. Everything we're doing at Destination Devi. Support the movement. Support the squad. Join the All Gas Army. Patreon.com/All Gas. But most importantly, go be freaking great today. If you have not checked out my first episode of Untitled, it dropped on Saturday. Promise you, it's a much different flow from your day-to-day fantasy content. We appreciate all the support. We love y'all. We'll see y'all next Monday. Y'all be great. I'm out. Peace. Before y'all close off of the video, I just want to say thank you for checking out the content on Destination Devi. Really appreciate every single view that we get. And the only thing that I ask is that you hit the thumbs up button, like the content, subscribe to the channel, and if you can, comment below for the algorithm. Really helps the channel grow. Now, if you want more exclusive access to me and the entire Destination Devi team, Patreon.com/allgas gives you that access. Now, if your money's a little funny, we do have free content for you. Make sure you subscribe to the All Gas newsletter. There's a link in the description of this video below. And subscribe to the Destination Debbie podcast radio feed, where we got all types of shows hitting the airwaves every single week. Now y'all can get out of here. I appreciate y'all tapping in. It's All Gas all the time. I love y'all. I'm out of this thing. Peace.